this year's dubious achievement in global warming award goes to soot. New research has shown that soot, aka black carbon, is one of the top 2 contributors to climate change, greater than methane and second only to carbon dioxide. Produced mostly by diesel engines and burning wood, soot has been found to have twice the impact on global warming as previously thought. Although industrialized nations have taken strides in recent years to reduce diesel emissions, soot production grows steadily in developing countries that burn biomass unchecked. But there may be a silver lining to this black cloud. While carbon dioxide can take a century to dissipate in our atmosphere, black carbon lasts only a few days, so reducing it would have immediate effects on the climate. The study has suggested that if aggressive action is taken to eliminate soot from the equation, the rate of global warming could be cut in half in about 4 decades, effectively buying time to address the long-term CO2 problem.
From Arctic to Antarctic, climate change is unequivocal. This is evident from observations of increases in global average air and ocean temperatures. You can see it in the widespread melting of ice and snow, in the rising global average of sea level, and in extensive coral bleaching, a phenomenon strongly tied to rising ocean temperatures. There is sufficient scientific evidence that the planet is becoming warmer. This warming effect, referred to as global warming, is owed to an accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere linked to increased burning of fossil fuel. The large increase in greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, impedes the normal loss of heat to space, thus elevating atmospheric, land, and ocean temperatures. It is a major global environmental problem, endangering the well-being of communities and natural ecosystems throughout the world. The Central American region is no exception to this. Central America is among the most vulnerable regions of the world with respect to global warming. The region is already very susceptible to natural threats such as violent hurricanes, storms, excessive rainfall, flooding, and extreme drought, which will increase in magnitude with climate change.
Eso que pasó. Primero pasó a las 5:30, bajó la primera, la segunda bajó a las 8, la tercera bajó a las 9:30. Esa calmó un poquito, cuando viene esa va a ser, pues llegó todas las casas.
Año tras año han sido más recurrentes las tormentas que nos han obligado a tener que estar preparados con un sistema de respuesta a emergencias.
The storms are definitely getting more intense. And it's obvious that it's because of the warming temperatures. The water is warmer, the sun is hotter.
Las tormentas son mucho más fuertes. Cuando yo estuve en esta área hace como unos 10 años, esos eventos eran muy difíciles de verlos. Actualmente ya se vuelven un poco más cotidianos.
Yo llevo 18 años viviendo en la región y sí he podido sentir un cambio climático. Antes, durante el día hacía bastante calor y en la noche llovía. Ahora nuestras épocas de lluvia son más cortas, no llueve todas las noches como antes, el calor es más intenso. Sí puedo percibir un cambio bastante grande en el cambio climático.
Whether we live along the coast or further inland, we can all expect to experience impacts from global climate change. For instance, our coral reefs will likely continue to be impacted by warming ocean and sea. Our forest and agricultural lands will experience more arid, dry conditions, and many organisms depended upon as a source of food are likely to die or migrate to more suitable, tolerable environments. Understanding that mangroves and coral reefs help reduce the impact of hurricanes and tropical storms on coastal populations that would otherwise be at risk WWF is trying to promote their protection. For thousands of years, the Mesoamerican reef system has been protecting adjacent coastlines within Mexico, Belize, and Honduras from damage owed to storm surges and high waves associated with tropical storms and hurricanes. Without it, waves and storm surges will make direct contact with coastal land with greater force, causing damage to properties, erosion of land, and pollution of the marine environment. Mangroves, serving as a second-line barrier, also reduce erosion and filter pollutant runoffs to the sea, thereby contributing to the promotion of good water quality. But now, climate change is jeopardizing the continued existence and health of these natural barriers, endangering human lives and affecting biodiversity. The loss of these barriers may, furthermore, place at risk the livelihoods of people dependent on industries such as tourism and fisheries within the region.
El mangle es una parte muy importante. Ahorita nosotros estamos acá y de hecho ahorita mucha gente está llegando y ya no hay dónde y quieren agarrar las partes del mangle, pero no se puede, no está permitido. Hay una nueva ley, creo que se lo viste en el periódico, la ley esa que está prohibidísimo tirar mangle y toda la cosa.
Recordemos que los corales también protegen y sirven mucho en caso de un huracán. Los corales son los que frenan ahora sí el impacto de las olas. De no ver corales, arrecifes, yo creo que el estado de Quintana Roo sufriría más daño en los impactos del huracán.
WWF, the Global Conservation Organization, is aware of the need to maintain good reef and mangrove health in the face of climate change, and is working on the ground within the Mesoamerican region to foster their protection, as well as identify community-based climate change adaptation measures in Belize and Honduras. Through its Climate Witness program, World Wildlife Fund has been effectively collecting personal testimonies from individuals throughout the region on how their lives, livelihoods, and way of life have or are being impacted by natural threats as well as environmentally damaging human activities. WWF is working with these witnesses at the local level to bring their issues and concerns to policy and decision makers.
We have seen tremendous changes in the temperature of the water. Especially I could remember back in 1998, just before we had Hurricane Mitch, the water temperature was extremely high. And we also noticed, a lot of coral bleaching at the time. And even now, although we have, cold fronts coming through and stuff, the water still doesn't get as cool as it used to be. So that's one of the big changes that I'm seeing right now.
Atmospheric heating and warming sea are fuel for hurricanes, causing them to increase in power, such as many of the high-category storms we have experienced of late. Hurricanes Mitch, Stan, and Felix are a few that have had significant impact within the region. High air temperatures have also resulted in severe droughts in the region. Another grave problem related to climate change is the reduction of fresh water for human consumption. But water shortage is not our only concern. Food shortage of products from the sea will force massive migration to the cities, creating new social problems through rings of poverty. Another effect of global warming could be an increase in diseases such as malaria, dengue, and yellow fever due to an increase in temperature. This increases the reproductive rate and dispersal range of the mosquitoes that transmit these diseases, thus exposing more people to them. We could also find 30% more cases of childhood asthma and an increase in other respiratory diseases in elderly people. We are running out of time.
Que anteriormente los cambios eran más paulatinos y eran más prolongados, es decir, la temporada de invierno duraba más tiempo y la transición era menos drástica. Ahora en pocos días uno puede estar con un clima muy cálido y de repente se viene una tormenta tropical que trae vientos bastante frescos y eso provoca daños en las vías respiratorias, sobre todo de los niños.
Bueno, por el aumento de las tormentas hay aumento en las aguas anegadas también, ¿verdad? Ha habido una proliferación de zancudos, vector tanto del dengue como del dengue hemorrágico.
What is the position of governments of this region in response to concerns expressed by climate witnesses?
La gran mayoría de las veces siempre le echamos la culpa a las autoridades porque pues de alguna forma ellos son los que administran el recurso. Pero yo creo que la mayor responsabilidad recae en las personas que lo explotan. Porque si nosotros nos ponemos en un plan para conservar, yo creo que la autoridad, lo poco que está haciendo, sí podría funcionar. Pero si nosotros también, en vez de que ayudemos a esto, también hacemos lo mismo, no vamos a lograr nada.
How can we, the human and natural systems, cope under the changing climatic condition? World Wildlife Fund recommends that we work together to ensure that our ecosystems remain intact while at the same time promote environmentally sound development activities. Sustainable development is the only way that we can ensure a clean environment and a good future for our children and grandchildren. For example, mangroves should not be cleared for development. We need an increased awareness on the effects of climate change and other issues, and we need to find a rational balance between progress and conservation, respecting our planet as a living entity. We need to minimize the effects of our daily activities on the planet and learn to adapt intelligently to climate change. We need to encourage cleaner production industries and renewable energy exploration. The Mesoamerican region possesses mangroves, seagrass beds, and the second longest barrier reef in the world. Combined with the warm spirit of the people and cool Caribbean breeze, the region is considered a true paradise. However, as awe-inspiring our scuba diving, fishing, and submarine adventures may be, they are at serious risk with the threat of climate change. We must act now if we are to maintain the current goods and services for present and future generations.
No dejar los cerros abiertos. Reforestar, reforestar y reforestar. Reciclar, reciclar y reciclar. Ahorrar energía y usar más la bicicleta. Comprar bombillas.
Central America's prosperity may well become the next victim of the region's spiraling wave of crime and violence that costs thousands of lives and millions of dollars every year, according to a World Bank report. Central America's population is roughly the same size as Spain's. But in stark contrast, while in Spain 336 homicides were committed in 2006, in Central America, the total number of homicides reached 14,257 over the same period of time. According to the report, a 10% reduction in the crime rate would boost economic growth by as much as 1%, a significant increase in the region that in 2010 grew at a rate of around 2%.
It affects all spheres of life, from the welfare of citizens and communities to the enabling environment for growth and job creation to the legitimacy of government institutions. All countries except Costa Rica, the businesses in those countries identify crime as one of the top 5 constraints for productivity and growth.
Fueling this spiral of violence is a known culprit: drug trafficking. The report says that, contrary to commonly held beliefs, outlawing does not dent drug cartels' power, but instead increases society's levels of violence. Addressing drug-related violence, then, requires a collaborative approach that starts with prevention at an early age.
What we're recommending is that the marginal funds that do exist in these countries be directed to crime prevention efforts, to criminal justice reform, to legislation, for example, that reduces the availability of firearms, and, for example, also to be directed to public health programs that are dealing with the effect of the consumption of drugs, and then also specific programs targeted towards at-risk youth, and in particular male youth, since they're the majority of victims and perpetrators of violence in Central America.
There are around 4 million firearms, most of them illegally obtained in the hands of Central Americans, the report says. Armed with huge amounts of cash, drug trafficking fuels the demand for firearms and provides the resources to buy them. All these factors combined put to the test Central America's criminal justice system, which will need to be improved to effectively fight crime and violence in the region.
There is a vicious circle in Central America in which increased levels of crime and violence have contributed to the weakening of criminal justice institutions, for instance through drug traffic related corruption. And at the same time, the weakening of the justice systems have contributed to the spiral in crime and violence in the region, for instance through increased impunity for crime offenders. Now, breaking this vicious circle should be a priority for the citizen security agenda in Central America.
Reducing crime and violence in Central America demands a complex and coordinated response at the regional and continental levels that may not yield immediate and obvious results. But not doing so may have grave long-term consequences for the region.